My name is Frank Santos. I will be speaking as the opposition in the following resolve statement, that this House believes that being a vegetarian is a better ethical choice than meat eating. I will start by exposing some flaws throughout the proposition's opening. The proposition has no citations for the numerous sources and organizations that were quoted throughout her opening, giving the proposition an unfair advantage in this debate by not allowing the opposition to verify the warrants, publication dates, or qualifications in her sources. The proposition should lose the round based on this unfair advantage, as both sides need the ability to vet sources used by the other side, and not simply assume that all sources quoted were quoted accurately. Science and medicine are both fluid environments based on new findings in their respective fields, and there is no efficient way for the opposition to verify that the proposition statistics about the benefits of being a vegetarian according to the ADA are recent or even correct. Given these facts, the proposition should lose the round due to the opposition's inability to fairly prepare to debate this round. While the proposition talked about deforestation, they in no way linked it to the resolve statement. Instead, they simply listed the harms of deforestation itself, but in no way suggested how meat eating leads to deforestation. It is for this reason that the judge should consider the proposition's argument about deforestation as invalid to this debate round. The proposition suggests that all reallocation of crops will end world hunger in this quote, if all crops that went to feed cattle and other livestock went to feed people, world hunger could be solved. However, the proposition assumes that the newly acquired excess food in the world that is no longer being used to feed cattle would automatically go to the hungry. There is already excess food in the world that does not go to the hungry. Why would more of it make a difference? The Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations and the World Economic Forum estimate that roughly 70 billion pounds of edible food is lost in the U.S. each year. Furthermore, the corporations that profit off of those aforementioned crops to feed livestock are not simply just going to give it away to the hungry now. Corporations are in the business of making profits, not being a charity to the hungry, and that would not change simply because we are reallocating their crops. They will still want to make a profit and prosper. Unfortunately, the proposition's idealistic view on world hunger is trumped by the basic economics that have run this country since capitalism was introduced, and will not simply change by reallocating how the people in control of those crops are allowed to distribute them. According to Karl Marx, the core factor in evaluating the value of a commodity is its use value. Quote, use value are only realized in use or in consumption. If cattle are no longer necessary to feed, the crops being used to feed them are no longer necessary to grow. Crops will not simply be grown because they no longer have an economically relevant use value. Growing crops just to feed the hungry would make no economical sense, and thus the proposition's argument that choosing a vegetarian diet would end world hunger is also invalid. The proposition wants to end world hunger, yet only cites statistics about corn and soy from the U.S., failing to account for third world countries where world hunger is primarily taking place. The World Food Program supports this, saying, quote, the vast majority of the world's hungry people live in developing countries, where 13.5% of the population is undernourished. As stated earlier, the proposition did not properly cite their statistics in the health benefits of being a vegetarian, making it impossible for the opposition to argue against, as I cannot verify the validity of the proposition statements. However, in terms of health, some scientists argue that meat eating was crucial to the development of the human being's brain expansion. Catherine Milton, who works at the Department of Environmental Science, Policy, and Management at Berkeley University, hypothesized that meat eating is what gives humans the, quote, energy required for cerebral expansion, in comparison to our primal ancestors like chimpanzees and the gorilla. Milton goes on, quote, by routinely including animal protein in their diet, humans were able to reap some nutritional advantages enjoyed by carnivores, even though they have features of gut anatomy and digestive kinetics of herbivores. Based on this theory, if humans would have chosen to be vegetarians instead of meat eaters in our early evolutionary stage, we would have lacked the mental capacity to even entertain making an ethical choice and thus having this debate. The proposition failed to define the meaning of this House in their opening. In turn, it will be expected to defend that being a vegetarian is a better ethical choice than meat eating in all circumstances, even if it is a matter of self-preservation. A basic example of this are hunter and gatherers in third world countries who do not have access to the resources available to first world nations and depend on meat eating for essential nutrients in their diets. Based on the proposition stance, hunters and gatherers should choose death over meat eating, going against the fundamental theory of self-preservation in human beings. I believe that the judge should vote for the opposition, as I have sufficiently exposed the flaws in the proposition's argument, as well as provided an alternative where being a vegetarian is not a better ethical choice than meat eating.